Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are wading into some truly profound and, let's be honest, often intensely personal waters.
We really are.
We're looking at a topic that touches on the absolute heaviest moments in life. You know those times when you feel completely weighed down. The world around you is just noise, the future looks completely foggy, and you just feel this deep, painful sense of being disconnected.
And that feeling is so universal. It's that moment of maximum human fragility.
Yeah.
It can be, financial dread, a health crisis that's just looming over you.
Right.
Or maybe it's just the sheer exhaustion of trying to hold a relationship together, or feeling like your own purpose is just crumbling.
And it's precisely into that dark space that our source material today steps.
It really does.
Exactly. Our core source today is an exceptionally compelling text. It's titled, The Transforming Power of Prayer, How Prayer Changes Everything in Your Life, the Truth You've Never Heard.
And we should be clear about how we're approaching this.
Yes. We're not here for a religious lesson. We're here to analyze its claims, and these are intensely specific claims about the mechanism and the impact of prayer.
Right. The source isn't just asking for some kind of passive belief. It's actually arguing that prayer is a tangible force. It tries to move it out of the realm of, abstract spiritual exercise.
And into what?
And into a field of practical transformative mechanics. It makes this promise that it affects both your internal landscape and, what I find most intriguing, what it describes as the unseen world.
So our mission today is really to unpack these core claims, to really dig in. We want to extract these surprisingly, I'd say, sophisticated nuggets of insight about why this source is so confident in labeling prayer a lifeline, a doorway, and maybe the most provocative one.
I know which one you're going to say.
A turning point heaven has been waiting for. We have to get beyond just the summary and really understand the why and the how, according to this text.
And what's crucial is how it starts. The source doesn't begin with, some academic definition or a spiritual primer. It starts in the most basic, recognizable human moment.
The crisis.
The crisis.
That's right. It paints this scene that's just immediately relatable to, I think, anyone listening. You're sitting on the edge of the bed, you feel broken, you feel numb, almost finished.
And the signs of that crisis are so tangible. The bills stacking up, that frightening diagnosis that's just hanging there.
A family relationship failing. Or maybe what's worst of all, that slow, terrifying erosion of your faith, of your hope, just slipping through your fingers when you thought you had a solid grip on it.
It establishes the lowest possible point. And it emphasizes that if you are there, you don't need some formal rehearsed speech to start this process of transformation.
That's a huge barrier removed, right?
A huge barrier. It removes that feeling of inadequacy, that you're not worthy enough to even initiate contact.
And the power, the source claims, is in the minimal input. We're talking about just 4 whispered words. That's the example it gives.
God, I need you.
God, I need you. No complicated liturgy, no exhaustive plea, just those 4 words spoken from a place of just utter vulnerability and desperation.
And I think the genius of the source's opening is how it describes the immediate consequence. It claims, and heaven moved, but, and this is so important, it is meticulous in defining what this movement is.
It's not what you'd see in a movie.
Not at all. There's no thunder, no lightning, no big external miracle that happens right away. The immediate observable change isn't in your circumstances. It's profoundly internal.
It responds with peace and clarity. That, the source argues, is the key distinction. The world outside your window hasn't changed a bit.
The bills are still there.
The stress is still there. The diagnostic uncertainty persists. But the person who spoke those 4 words has suddenly accessed an internal shift. It's a moment of internal stabilization.
Precisely. The text uses scripture to anchor this, citing the reassurance that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted. But the claim in Isaiah 65.24 is the one that really sets the stage for everything else that follows.
So,
before they call, I will answer. This establishes the foundational mechanism. The response is instant. It's affirmed the moment the words leave your mouth, even if your circumstance remains utterly chaotic.
So the first move, according to this material, is always personal. It's focused on stabilizing you first.
Always.
Okay, let's unpack this core concept a little deeper then. This moves us straight into section 1, which is really the foundational philosophy of this material. Prayer doesn't just change circumstances, it changes you.
And this is the critical pivot. If we approach prayer as mainly a mechanism for external fix-it jobs, like hitting a reset button on your life.
Which I think a lot of people do.
A lot of people do. And the source argues we will inevitably be disappointed and really miss the greater work that's happening. The goal isn't plot convenience, it's personal restructuring. It's about building a better infrastructure for your future, regardless of whether the immediate problem vanishes.
The text is almost clinical in how it details these internal shifts. It claims prayer doesn't just ask for strength, but that it actively, and I love this phrase, reshapes your thoughts and softens fear's grip. It's about creating this profound psychological and spiritual security blanket. It gives the individual a deeply felt reminder that they are carried, guided, protected, even when life feels chaotic.
Let's spend a moment on that idea of reshaping your thoughts. Because when we're in a crisis, our minds often get stuck in what psychologists call catastrophic or circular thinking.
Right, you just play the worst case scenario over and over.
Endlessly. Fear becomes the dominant voice in your head, and it demands all your attention and just paralyzes any action. The source is positing that the very act of turning that internal monologue outward to a higher power, even with just those 4 simple words, is a cognitive break.
So it's the physical, mental action of prayer that actually interrupts that destructive feedback loop.
I think so.
So instead of your mind just cycling on, the bills are due, I'm going to fail, everyone will judge me, this is hopeless, the mind is now processing something different. I have acknowledged the crisis, and I have placed it outside of myself, connecting to a resource I trust.
Exactly. This new narrative challenges the dominance of fear. If the source is claiming you are carried and guided, that perspective immediately injects hope and agency back into the situation. You're no longer solely responsible for an outcome you can't control.
You're now a participant.
You are now participating in an outcome that's being determined by a greater power. And this internal shift is the necessary precursor for dealing successfully with all that external chaos.
This leads directly into that crucial insight that I think many people miss this when they get frustrated by prayer.
Oh, this is a major one.
Sometimes God doesn't calm the storm immediately, he calms you first. This just completely reframes the experience of struggling while you're praying.
It is a major insight. Because if the diagnosis doesn't just disappear, or the relationship doesn't heal overnight, many people conclude, well, my prayer wasn't heard.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. The source challenges this by saying the lack of an immediate external miracle is not a sign of silence. It's a sign that the deeper, more important transformation, that internal fortification, has begun. The storm is external, but the battle for your soul, that's internal.
And to really solidify this concept of internal calm acting as this active defensive power, the source brings in one of its most powerful scriptural anchors, Philippians 4:6-7.
That's classic.
Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer, the peace of God will guard your hearts.
We absolutely need to do a deep dive into that verb, guard, because the original Greek, the word is furio, and it is intensely active military language.
It's not just a nice feeling.
No, it is not suggesting a gentle reassurance or just a comforting feeling. It implies a fortified perimeter.
A protective, defensive function.
Yeah.
So tell us more about the implications of that military connotation.
Okay, think of it like this. In ancient warfare, the furio was the garrison, the sentry duty, the protective siege watch that you'd place around a city to keep it from falling to an enemy assault. So when Paul uses this word, he is not talking about passive serenity. He is saying that the peace you access through prayer acts as an active, armed guard standing watch over your most vulnerable center, your heart and mind.
To what end?
To prevent the siege weapons of anxiety, panic, and catastrophic thought from breaching the walls.
So if anxiety is the enemy trying to lay siege to your emotional core, prayer is the action that immediately deploys this guard, this peace, to keep the gates secured.
Yes.
It prevents the internal chaos from spiraling, even if the external storm is still raging outside the city walls. This reframes prayer as less about, asking for a specific outcome.
And entirely about establishing strategic internal fortitude.
Exactly.
The transformation is fundamentally about capacity building.
Capacity building, I like that.
If you are internally fortified, if your mind is protected by this spiritual garrison, your capacity to endure, to make rational decisions, and ultimately to overcome your circumstances is exponentially increased.
So the source is arguing that the divine interest is first in preparing the person for the battle, equipping the soldier.
Equipping the soldier before intervening in the battle itself.
Which brings us beautifully to the example of intentional prayer, using Jesus' model, which the source uses to link this internal preparation directly to generating external results.
Right.
The text highlights Jesus' consistent practice of praying before major actions, linking it directly to filling earth's weakness with heaven's strength.
And this modeling provides the necessary sequencing. The source argues that prayer is not the last resort, it's the strategic precursor to effective, divinely aligned action. Human effort, or earth's weakness, is acknowledged as just, not enough on its own.
It needs an inoculation.
It requires an inoculation with heaven's strength.
And the source gives these really specific high-stakes examples of moments that were preceded by prayer. Before miracles, before choosing the disciples, before facing betrayal, and critically, before the cross.
Let's focus on the choosing of the disciples for a second. That was a human choice with, eternal consequences.
It was maybe the most crucial HR decision ever made. He was selecting the 12 people who would carry the entire movement forward.
That requires some serious foresight.
Foresight, wisdom, and the elimination of human bias or error. The source suggests that by spending that time in prayer before making the selection, Jesus wasn't just reflecting. He was ensuring that the potential for earthly weakness, misjudgment, personal preference, fatigue, was replaced by divine clarity and alignment.
The strength came from above.
Ensuring the foundation was structurally sound, yes.
And before the ultimate agony of betrayal and the cross, the prayer wasn't about avoiding the pain. It was about accepting the strength to endure it, which ties back perfectly to that concept, that prayer calms you first, even when the storm is inevitable and necessary. This intentional, strategic practice really elevates prayer from a civil ritual to a mandatory operational step. It underscores the source's belief that there is an essential, often unseen component missing from our human efforts that can only be filled by this spiritual engagement.
Otherwise, you're
trying to lift an impossible weight using only your own finite strength.
And the source material leaves us with this really powerful open loop, right? A question designed to hook you, the listener, and to challenge that inertia.
It's a great one.
What if the miracle you're waiting for is on the other side of a prayer you haven't prayed yet? It puts the agency, the turning point, squarely back on the individual's action.
It's compelling rhetoric because it forces you to challenge that passive notion of just waiting for something to happen. If massive transformations are reliably preceded by prayer, then maybe our current stagnation isn't due to divine unwillingness,
but just the result of a process we haven't started yet.
An uninitiated internal and external process.
Exactly. Okay, so now that we've established this internal fortitude that prayer creates, the calming of the storm within, let's zoom out a bit and look at what the source claims is happening in the world outside of you, the unseen dynamics.
Right.
We're moving into section 2, focusing on the invisible dynamics of prayer and how, as the source says, heaven moves.
And this is where the source makes its boldest, most metaphysical claims. It insists that when you pray, something happens in the invisible, even if you may not see it. It really demands that you, the listener, acknowledge that prayer is an act that generates immediate, tangible, though non-physical results.
The source is remarkably specific about what these heavens movements are. It lists these concrete actions that are claimed to happen the moment you pray.
What are they?
Angels are assigned, peace is released, strength rises, storms shift.
So these claims, they describe a fundamental reshaping of the spiritual infrastructure around the person praying. The release of peace and the rising of strength. Those directly reinforce the personal stability we were just talking about.
The internal stuff.
The internal stuff. But the assignment of angels and the shifting of storms suggest that prayer is initiating some kind of cosmic logistics. It's deploying resources in the unseen realm to influence circumstances that are currently way beyond human control.
Okay, let's pause on that. Angels are assigned and storms shift. How does the source describe the mechanism of that? Does it imply there's like a waiting reserve army, or is it a customized response?
The material implies a highly responsive, customized logistical system. The moment those 4 words, God, I need you, were spoken, the nature of the need determines the deployment.
So it's specific.
It's specific. If the storm is overwhelming, specific forces are assigned to influence or mitigate that chaos. This means your prayer isn't just getting filed away somewhere, it's triggering an immediate action order in a realm you can't perceive.
And the transformative result on the individual, even without seeing those logistics, the angels, the shifting storms, is this powerful conclusion. You become someone you didn't know you could be.
Right. The prayer initiates the person into a new state of being, an equipped state, ready for the battles ahead, because they know, implicitly, that the logistics are in motion.
So to connect this concept of immediate action followed by a delayed manifestation, which, let's be honest, is the most frustrating part of prayer for so many people.
It's the hardest part.
The source uses the definitive example of Daniel in Daniel chapter 10.
This story is indispensable for understanding this idea of the unseen battle.
So Daniel prayed, and he continued to fast and pray for 21 days. But when the angel finally broke through and arrived, the first words he says are just profound.
From the moment you prayed, your words were heard.
From the moment you prayed.
The significance of this 21-day timeline is the central insight of this whole section. The answer was instantaneous. Day 1, moment 1, the prayer was registered, the command was issued, and the answer was sent. However, the delivery, the physical manifestation of that answer, was delayed for 3 weeks.
And why?
Because of battles happening in the unseen.
This is where the source truly earns its title. It reframes that feeling of being ignored. Your prayer was heard instantly, the logistics were deployed instantly, but the implementation was being fought for, tooth and nail, in a realm you cannot see.
The delay, then, is evidence not of divine neglect, but of intense opposition fighting the answer's passage into your reality.
I mean, we really need to acknowledge the emotional implication of that. Imagine being Daniel for those 21 days.
Oh, it must have been agony.
You're fasting, you're suffering, you're getting no visible sign of relief or breakthrough. You could so easily conclude that God has rejected your request or is just too busy.
And yet, the angel reveals that the entire time, you were the center of a cosmic struggle. Your very prayer initiated a 21-day war.
And the source applies this principle directly to your life, saying, this is your life too. It follows this with a powerful, empowering declaration. Your prayers are stronger than every fear that fights them.
It validates that painful experience of waiting. It reframes the frustration into an awareness of this massive, ongoing conflict where you are the key initiator.
And this leads us directly into the source's second big open loop. Why the enemy fears your prayer more than your strength.
That's an intriguing distinction, isn't it? Because we so often rely on our own human strength, our determination, our effort in a crisis.
The source argues that your natural human strength, your willpower, your planning, your finite reserves, that's manageable for the opposition. Those limits are known. What the opposition truly fears is the external power, the divine intervention that you access through prayer.
That's the unpredictable variable.
Exactly. And this explains the specific strategy of opposition, trying to distract you, to discourage you, to silence you.
I mean, think about it. If your prayers were meaningless, why would anyone expend energy trying to stop them? The attempts to silence the prayer are, ironically, confirmation of its immense immediate power.
And the source concludes that the reason for this fear is simple and strategic. A praying person is an unstoppable person.
They have access to infinite power deployed in real time, even if it takes 21 days for that power to manifest because of the struggle.
This realization provides immediate tactical advice for you listening. When you feel most discouraged, most distracted, or most unable to even articulate a prayer.
The source suggests you're actually closest to a breakthrough, because the opposition is working its hardest precisely to shut down your line of power at that critical moment.
And the functions of prayer are so clearly defined here, elevating it far beyond just a conversation or a petition. According to the source, prayer is simultaneously a weapon, a shield, a lifeline, and a bridge.
A bridge between your weakness and God's power.
Let's break those down because they are loaded with meaning. A weapon is for offense.
Taking background, you've lost to fear or illness. A shield is for defensive protection, that active perimeter we talked about.
A lifeline is for rescue when you feel like you're drowning.
And the bridge is for transmission. It's a conduit that transmits infinite strength to a place of recognized, finite weakness. It's presented as this dynamic, multifunctional system for engagement.
And this inherent power is then cemented with the final scriptural anchor of this section, James 5.16. It's such a definitive statement.
The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective.
And the source insists on focusing on the immediacy and the certainty of those two words. Powerful and effective. Not someday, not maybe. Powerful, effective, now.
This really grounds the concept of immediate efficacy, regardless of whether you can see the results right away. The power is enacted the moment those 4 words are spoken. The effectiveness is guaranteed, even if the manifestation requires that unseen battle we see in Daniel 10.
So the message is clear. The efficacy of the prayer is a settled truth, not some evolving experiment. The moment of speaking, God, I need you, is the moment the power is unleashed.
Even if the circumstances around you still look chaotic because the battle is being fought just out of your sight, it relieves the listener of the burden of evaluating the prayer's success based only on external, immediate feedback.
And instead anchors its success in the internal commitment and the divine response. Okay, so we've established the internal change and the invisible logistics. Let's pivot now toward the practical, continuous application of these insights. This is section 3, the movement and the miracle.
The source now reinforces the universality of prayer by giving these situational calls for when it's needed, emphasizing that it's applicable in all moments of human uncertainty, not just the big, grand crises.
Yeah, the source frames prayer as integral to navigating just daily confusion. It says you need it when life feels uncertain, when you're overwhelmed, and crucially, when you simply don't know where to turn.
Which makes prayer a necessary tool for management, not just desperation.
And it defines prayer not as a single, isolated action, something you check off your to-do list.
But as a continuous state. Prayer isn't a moment, it's a movement. This is the continuous flow state, the constant conversation with a figure who sees you fully, knows you deeply, and loves you endlessly.
That concept of prayer as a movement, that really changes the required intensity. It implies a persistent engagement, a returning to the source of strength all throughout the day, not just some formalized ritual at dawn or dusk.
It suggests the line of communication should always remain open, always active, because the battle is continuous.
And this continuous movement brings us back to the most critical change of all, which the source calls the miracle we don't talk about enough.
I love this part.
When you pray, heaven doesn't just change your situation, heaven changes your heart.
And this is the ultimate internal triumph. It's such a powerful point of psychological resilience. It suggests that even if the external situation remains dire, the debt is still there, the relationship still needs long, painful work.
The person who prayed is now equipped with the clarity, the peace, and the hope to face it without collapsing into despair. The internal structure is sound.
And the specified positive outcomes for the individual are tangible results of this heart change. They act as empirical evidence of the process.
What are they?
Burdens lighten, clarity sharpens, hope rises like the dawn. These are not vague spiritual feelings. They are measurable improvements in your emotional and psychological well-being. They prove that the internal stabilization is truly effective, directly combating that initial feeling of being broken, numb, finished.
Now we come to the ultimate twist, the final open loop that requires a major shift in perspective for the listener, and it connects right back to the power we discussed in Daniel 10.
This is arguably the boldest claim in the entire text.
The source proposes the possibility that the answer, the breakthrough itself, is dependent on the action of prayer.
It fundamentally reverses the common assumption. We often think the answer is delayed, therefore I should pray more. The source proposes something different. The delay exists because the prayer hasn't been offered or consistently offered yet.
It challenges our perception of limits. The core questions the source poses really drive this home.
What have we assumed is impossible? What door have we stopped knocking on?
It challenges the boundaries we've set for ourselves, boundaries that are based on our own past failures or our limited human perception of reality.
It demands an examination of human passivity. If the promise is, before they call, I will answer, then any perceived lack of breakthrough has to be tied back to the human decision to stop calling, to stop opening the channel.
The logic is kind of self-referential. If the mechanism requires the prayer, then the breakthrough simply cannot precede the action.
It can't.
And the punchline is so clear and incredibly empowering. The peace, direction, and breakthrough has been waiting on your next prayer. It links your free will and your action directly to the arrival of the divine answer.
The missing ingredient is not divine willingness, which is presumed to be infinite, but human asking, which is finite and often hesitant.
So in synthesizing this whole mechanism, the material offers a simple yet profound conclusion that ties the personal transformation of Section 1 to the invisible dynamics of Section 2.
It really summarizes the entire process.
The mechanism is not about leveraging a reluctant God. It's about aligning a willing individual. The conclusion is, when you pray, you don't move God. You allow God to move through you.
And that is the distillation of the transformation. Prayer is not a leverage tool you use to shift some reluctant cosmic force. It is an opening, a channel, a bridge through which divine power flows into the earthly realm,
Starting with your own heart and actions.
and then extending into the unseen battleground of your external circumstances.
And that, the source concludes, changes everything. It changes the person, it changes the logistics, and ultimately it changes the outcome, even if the process takes 21 days or longer.
It entirely shifts the focus from the divine response to the human posture. If God is already moving and already working, as claimed by that prompt in Isaiah, then the task of prayer is simply to remove the internal and relational barriers that prevent that movement from flowing freely into our lives.
Okay, so let's quickly synthesize the core arguments from this deep dive into the transforming power of prayer. We began with that essential crisis and the resulting internal transition from brokenness to clarity.
Establishing that all transformation, according to this source, starts inside you, fortifying the heart like a guard on the perimeter.
Then we established the concept of invisible movement, where these cosmic logistics are immediately deployed, angels assigned, battles waged the moment a prayer is spoken.
And the dual nature of prayer is that it's both intensely personal, a calming of the heart, and cosmically strategic, a trigger for external shifts.
And finally, we examine that powerful, practical realization that the breakthrough you're waiting for might actually be waiting on your next prayer, confirming the immediate efficacy of the action, even when visible results are delayed by that necessary unseen struggle.
The source then issues this powerful final invitation, making the act of prayer entirely accessible by emphasizing that the mode of prayer is irrelevant. The simple action of engaging is everything.
Right. It reviews the different ways to engage. Whisper it when you're too weak to speak. Shout it when you need to let the frustration out.
Cry it in desperation. Think it in a continuous conversation.
Wrestle with it when the clarity hasn't come and just return to it, always. It's accessible, immediate, and constantly required.
And the source leaves us with a conviction designed to eliminate that feeling of isolation in a crisis, reinforcing that concept of immediate strategic action.
The moment you pray, you're no longer fighting alone.
Because God is with you, God is for you, and God is already working. It's a powerful message of reassurance and empowerment, anchored in the understanding that the movement has already begun.
Now, to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought that connects all the pieces we've just uncovered. We heard the source quote Isaiah 65.24, which states, "Before they call, I will answer."
Implying instantaneous willingness and action.
Exactly. And then we analyzed the story of Daniel 10.12, where the answer was affirmed immediately, but delayed by 21 days due to an invisible strategic battle.
This juxtaposition forces us to reevaluate our definition of delay. The answer is instantaneous, but the delivery is fought for in a cosmic war. Then the delay is evidence not of divine rejection or even administrative lack,
But of the sheer terrifying intensity of the struggle the opposition is waging to keep that blessing from manifesting in your reality.
it changes everything about how you perceive waiting.
So the provocative closing question for you to mull over as you conclude this deep dive: how does understanding the invisible battle described in Daniel 10, those 21 days of war over an answer that was already sent, change your perception of delayed answers? And what does that imply about the intensity of the struggle happening just outside of your immediate awareness the next time you whisper, "God, I need you"?
And consider the possibility that the moment you feel most discouraged and stop praying, convinced the prayer went unanswered, is precisely the moment that the answer, having traveled for weeks through conflict, was about to break through the final barrier and arrive. The source suggests that your stopping might be the victory the opposition was seeking all along.
That's a powerful and challenging place to conclude our deep dive today. Thank you for exploring this transformative source material with us.
Always a pleasure. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.